What's going on, folks? Here's the finished study of an eye. I did this back in 2016. I just never got around to actually doing a voiceover for the tutorial, so I'm finally getting around to do it. Let's get into it either way. So I'm starting out. I'm using the Zorn palette, I believe, which is yellow ochre, cadmium red light, and ivory black. So red, yellow, black is a Zorn palette. Also titanium white, of course. So I'm starting out. This is a 6x6 canvas panel. I'm starting out with the sketch here, very loose. This is a study of just one small portion of a Sargent painting. I believe this is a portrait of his, instructor that he learned from, Carolus Duran. And this is just the eye of his painting. And I thought it was pretty cool. I was trying to, I figured, let's see the best I can do. I'm going to do the best I can, try to do a study of this eye. So I started out with a sketch here, and I basically mixed red and black kind of loosely just to get a dark kind of maroon color. And then I thinned it down with paint thinner. Gamsol, whatever you want to call it, whatever you use as your paint thinner. I just thinned that down, did a little sketch kind of loosely, and now I'm going in with the darkest darks here, kind of blocking those in, and I'm just going to move outward from there. So now I'm going in with the some skin tones here, really trying to replicate the warmth and the color of the skin tones. There's a lot of subtleties going on, and it's definitely hard when you don't have the painting actually in front of you. I'm just going off of a photo on the internet, so I don't have anything to compare it to. I've never seen the portrait in real life, so it's in that regard, it's difficult to do a study and make it be as accurate as possible. Obviously the point here, what I'm trying to do is mix the colors that I'm seeing on my screen, and what I'm trying to do is just relate those color relationships, the value relationships, the edge relationships in the drawing. It's really just working with all of that, and that's really what I'm focused on. I'm focused on getting the all the relationships, the warms and cools, very subtle things happening. You can see there the skin tone becomes really subtly cooler than the other skin tones around it. So focusing on dark areas, light areas, warm areas, cool areas, how much warmer, how much cooler, how much grayer. It's all these little tiny subtleties. How soft is the edge? Does it need to be sharper? Does it need to be softer? And something that I've read online, and actually I'm not sure where I read it. I have a lot of different Sargent books that were written by his grandnephew, and they kind of catalog his entire work. And there's a lot of interesting info in them. And just the way that he worked and stuff. And one thing I've read before, like I said, I'm not sure where I read this, but the way Sargent worked is that he would, at least this is one way that he worked. I'm sure he had many different outcomes. He did thousands of paintings over his life, so I'm sure there was many different outcomes and such. But sometimes in his paintings, he would end up being very tight with his brushwork, and he would actually save kind of that loose brushwork that you see in his work. He would save that brushwork for last. So he would put these very bold strokes on last, and that would create kind of this loose look that he has in some of his work, some of his portraits. But obviously, that's situational. It depends. Some of his portraits are very loose, and that's because they're just sketches. They're not actually finished paintings. But some of his finished paintings, you can see like the face area is very realistic, very tight. And then as you get down to the drapery or the clothes or the chair or whatever the case may be, the furniture around the person, or even something they're wearing like a dress, it gets very loose. And I think that maybe some of his method is he kind of, obviously he's making it loose where it doesn't matter as much. He wants you to focus on the more realistic area, but using those looser brushstrokes is kind of the last little icing on the cake at the end to kind of bring it all together and kind of bring back the strong brushwork of the painting. I find that pretty interesting. But anyway, let's get back to this painting here. So just focusing on this eye, and you can see that the white of the eye is not white at all. So you can compare it to the canvas panel, which is a white gesso, and then look at the color of the eye, the value of that white of the eye. It's actually a dark gray, like a middle value gray. So that's something, I mean, I think that's something a lot of beginners don't understand, or it's kind of hard to understand. You can see that actually the skin that I'm painting right now next to the eye is actually much, much lighter than the white of the eye. So I'm not saying the white of the eye can never be white, but in this sense, it's not. So that's interesting to take note of. And that's really the difficulty of painting is some people don't know what they're actually seeing. You know, they don't know what value it is or what color it is, really. It's hard to really pinpoint what it actually is. And that just comes with practice. That comes with study, you know, doing a bunch of still lifes, doing studies like I'm doing right now, this eye study, and just working at it, you know. Like I'm still studying. I'm still working at this stuff. I'm still trying to figure things out. It's a lifelong learning experience, you know. And I think for me, that's the fun aspect of it, because it's something I love doing. So I don't mind spending my whole life working on this. But you know, I think with this eye sketch, I think I got it pretty close, but I do think I probably got some of the proportions off. Some of the areas, very small things, subtle things are off in the drawing, but you know, it is what it is. Overall, I'm really focused on getting the values in color here, trying to get a realistic looking eye. Obviously, I want the proportions to be correct, but at this stage in my painting journey, I wasn't, you know, still always working on things. You know, nothing's ever perfect as much as I want it to be. All right, so now I'm painting in the eyebrow. Jumping into a larger brush there. And you can see I'm blending that in. Real soft, subtle, blending that into the other paint that's on the canvas there. That's the beautiful thing about oils, is like you can just, and there's a lot of different ways to blend. I need to go over and make some videos on that. There's, you know, you don't have to just wipe two colors together. You can actually paint a different color at the junction of those two colors to create a third tone and have that be the transition. You know, there's many different ways to transition and paint that way, but so it's interesting, this eye study, just around the eye and the nose there, the little bridge of the nose that I have in the eyebrow, you can see all the different areas, all the different color tones, all the different hues and values just in this one little part of the face. And I think that's why painting portraits and painting realistic stuff can be so challenging. Is like we think of, a skin tone, a Caucasian skin tone is just, you know, red and yellow mixed together, and you get this kind of brown color. But I mean, it's so much more than that. As we can see here in this study, there's so much more happening. There's so much more variety of color, subtle color shifts. And like I've said in so many videos, that's really where realism comes into play. Like where realism actually becomes real is like in these subtle shifts, these subtle value changes, these subtle hue or temperature changes, color changes, whatever you want to call them. You know, when I talk about temperature changes, it's really just a color change. But when you talk about a temperature change, it just shows that it's going from, changing from a warmer color to a cooler color, or a cooler color to a warmer color. But I guess any color change is really going to do that. But sometimes it's so subtle or so close that it's hard to tell which one's warmer, which one's cooler. But there's a lot happening on this eye. And that's why I think it's a fun thing to study. I mean, I really should do this a lot more. I think it's really important to study masters' work, to try to understand and try to see what they saw. Mix the colors that they mixed and try to understand why they did what they did, and what, why is his painting, even just the eye of it, the little part that I'm painting, why is it good? Is it good? Obviously the drawing is there, the values are there, and the color and edges are right, but breaking it down further, where are the soft edges, where's the subtlety, things like that. And there's so many different things you can study. I mean, hands, fingers, drapery, clothes, eyes, noses, facial features. I mean, it's endless. So, I mean, just pick something and go with it. But there we go. We got some subtle edges there, soft edges. You can see I'm really slowing down now. I'm getting close to the end here, of at least as far as I want to take it, or I felt that I could take it. It's just very subtle things happening. There we go, fixing a drawing mistake there, and the value mistake. I think that's pretty much where my proportions were off, I think. But anyway, there's a look at the finished study. Hope you guys enjoy this. Hope you learned from it. Anyway, have fun with it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out my other tutorial videos for drawing and painting. Also, subscribe to see future episodes. Peace.